Hello, everybody. My name is Jameson Greene, and today I will be talking about the history of Mazda Speed. I'm going to start off by telling you guys a story about Mazda Speed, which is still very impressive to this day. So, there is a race called the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it is, as the name suggests, a 24-hour long endurance race around the area of Le Mans, France. And this race has been going on since 1923, and it is arguably one of the most influential races ever. And so, in 1991, Mazda entered two cars with Mazda Speed. They had been developing these cars for multiple years after coming closer and closer to winning Le Mans every year. They entered two 787Bs, and these cars were very cool because they used their rotary engines, which I will explain more later. And after 6 hours, they had managed to get into 6th and 7th, and towards the last 2 hours of the race, the three Mercedes that they were behind the entire time started to break down. And so the number 55 787B stayed in the lead for the last 2 hours, and they became the first Japanese auto manufacturer to win Le Mans since 1923. Alright, so Mazda Speed actually used to be known as Mazda Sports Corner. It was started in 1967 when a Mazda employee named Takayoshi Ohashi saw the release of the new Mazda Cosmo, which was a two-seater rotary engine sports car. And so, what was cool about the rotary engine is instead of pistons, which push back and forth in an engine, a rotary uses a triangular metal rotor inside of an oval housing, which instead of pushing back and forth, it just spun in a circle. So, these engines could produce great amounts of power for their size and weight. And Takayoshi Ohashi decided that this would be a great car to start a team with. So he convinced Mazda into giving him one to modify and race. And him and one other of his friends took it and they modified the wheelbase so it was more stable at high speeds, and they modified the intake to give it 20 more horsepower. And so, right off the gate, they entered their Mazda Cosmo into an 84-hour-long endurance race, which the car is running at very high speeds and really harsh conditions for 84 hours straight. And it was really impressive because the brand new racing team finished 4th in that race. And so after that, Mazda Sports Corner just started to race every new Mazda, and they became tuning experts, you could say, on each different Mazda. So Mazda saw this as a great opportunity for them, so they started sponsoring them more and giving them more cars. So because the better they did in races, the more brand recognition they would get, and the more they did with the cars, the more that they could give Mazda to tell them what to do differently with them and how to change the cars. And so they just kept racing. And in 1978 came the RX-7, which revolutionized the affordable sports cars market because it was small enough so that you didn't have to pay a heavier tax for a larger car in Japan, and it was relatively cheap. It was really nimble and lightweight because it used the rotary engine, which you'll see in the presentation that I'm showing you right now. And what Mazda Speed started to do with these is modify them, and they started using them in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And so they started tweaking them more and more, and they just couldn't do it they couldn't win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It had been dominated by European and American auto manufacturers since the beginning. and they started just modifying it more and more each year. And eventually they started using prototype type cars where it's not production based. So they designed these cars right from the ground up to be just a race car. And these things were really fast, and they started adding more rotors into the engines, which is basically doubling the engine size of the previous ones. And so they took their 757Bs and modified them to become the 787B, which that was the infamous car that ended up winning Le Mans. And fun fact about the 1991 Le Mans, they held on to the title of the only Japanese auto manufacturer to win for 27 years. The next time that an auto manufacturer from Japan won was in 2018. It was Toyota. And so next, after winning that, they stayed stagnant for quite a few years. And they made their return in 2003 when they created an option package for the 2003 Protege, which was a compact sedan that was widely renowned for its great handling. And so in 2003, the Mazda Speed package came with a turbo, a limited slip differential, which helped in the corners, and a 6-speed transmission. So they upgraded the drivetrain and they added a turbo so it would have more power. The next year in 2004, they took a MX-5 Miata and they modified it with basically the same modification. They added a turbo, added a limited slip differential, and a 6-speed manual, which the cool thing about that is it was only $400 more than a base model Miata. In 2005 through 2008, they started releasing the Speed 6, which was a larger sedan, and they gave it all-wheel drive this time, a turbo and 6-speed. The next year, they released the Mazda Speed 3, which the Mazda Speed 3 was based off the Mazda 3, and it was a hatchback that was a compact hatchback that really was fun to drive from the beginning, and adding a turbo, the limited slip differential, and the new transmission really gave it that next edge to be a true performance car. They continued the Mazda Speed 3 up until 2013, which really gave the Mazda Speed name a huge push. These cars are still some of the coolest Mazdas today. So all in all, Mazda Speed pushed Mazda into popularity by using their motorsport accomplishments to give the brand recognition, and from 2003 up, they started building true enthusiast cars. They didn't really have many amenities, but they were fun to drive, they were affordable, and that's what people really started to love about Mazda Speed. Alright, thank you so much for